So yeah, my name is Jake Ammerman. I work for Triangle Pest Control. Have worked here for 9.5 years now. And my position is to train people on the different pests that we deal with, the different labels and rules and regulations, and then also make sure that people stay refreshed and make sure that they're fully competent on the field. Here in the state of North Carolina, we primarily deal with eastern subterranean termites, which is really the most common termites that you're going to find in the United States, particularly in the southeast of the United States. The thing about termites, they are nature's recyclers. In nature, they're beneficial. You know, a tree dies, it falls down, you know, it starts to rot, the termites come in, and they use that tree as a food source. The issue is that we also use dead wood to build our houses. And so the termites, they can't tell the difference. The termites are sneaky. They get into little cracks and crevices. They'll eat the wood inside of your walls, and you might not see any evidence at all until they've been there for multiple years, which is why we recommend 1-year inspections. So termites, they don't work incredibly fast, but they never go to sleep. So they're working 24/7. And so over the years, if they're inside your walls or say if they're in your crawl space, you're really not gonna know that you have a problem until you see significant damage. You know, you walk out into the kitchen and you notice that your floors crack underneath you. Or you notice that there's weird bubbling in the trim around one of your windows and you touch it and it completely gives in. The termites, they don't like sunlight, so they'll eat in the darkness, and then anytime the light is exposed, so for instance, if they eat a hole in the drywall, they're gonna immediately stop. If you're just passing by and you look at a piece of wood that's been painted, you might not notice at all that there's termite evidence until you start to touch it, until you start to see that, you know, it's completely hollowed out, they just haven't eaten the paint. People have a misconception that during the winter it's not a problem. The cold does slow them down, that's how they operate, but they don't stop. If they have a food source that they're going after, they're not going to stop traveling to that food source and eating. The termites, they only swarm once a year, right? Typically once a year, unless you have like heated floors or something that triggers them. And so it's easy to associate that with like termite season, right? Well, termite swarmers, they're just reproductives. They fly out, they try to find a place for a new colony and then repeat that cycle. The issue is not all colonies have swarmers. It could be 5-6 years before that colony is mature enough to send swarmers out. So for the people that have swarmers in the inside of their house, fortunately, if they have them inside their house, we can go, yes, you 100% have termites and we need to treat these, right? But what happens when you have termites in the house for 5-6 years and then a swarm gets released? Well, now we're talking about significant damage. You let termites attack a house for that long. I've seen floor systems like cave in where I'm in a crawl space and I could see the inside of a house. It can be really, really bad. And the amount of time that can pass without them being noticed, sometimes it can be tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage when it gets to that point. So the eastern subterranean termites, they build tunnels in order to retain moisture, and also it protects themselves from predators, such as ants. And ants and termites don't get along, and when they go to war, the ants tend to get the better of them. They can see and termites are blind, so it doesn't make for a fair fight. So they build these tunnels, and this is what, by the way, what we're looking for when we go in the crawl space or even inside in the slab home. We're looking for that mud tube material. So they'll build those tunnels up to whatever wood they're feeding on. They'll feed on the wood, but then they're going back down to the tunnels. They're traveling back and forth, right? And this is why the treatments that we do, we want to focus on ground level, because you can go into a house and, you know, try to treat in the inside of a wall, but that's not where they're actually living. The hundreds of thousands of members of that colony are not in that wall. They could be, you know, in your neighbor's backyard. So we want to attack them at the soil where we know they're going to be tunneling back and forth. These tunnels, they can vary in size. They typically start off pretty thin, and then the more that the termites tunnel in that tunnel, the bigger they get. So it's kind of an indication for us like how long that problem's been there. You know, if we see the termite tunnels and they're inches wide, they've been there for a while. They've really reinforced that area. And I've seen that. I've seen them build their tunnels around electric wires. I've seen them, you know, hanging down from the flooring system. I've even seen them tunnel up, like straight up from the ground. And, you know, they can get quite creative when they know that there's a food source present. And that's the biggest thing, right? So when they find a food source, they are going to really focused on that area. They're gonna tunnel up as in many areas as they can because they want to discover more and more food sources. So once you see those tunnels, it is a problem. And a misconception that people have is it's only 1 inch tall and it's dry and it's inactive. Well, it's not a problem. No, it absolutely is a problem, because what happened is those termites built that tunnel up. They're blind, they don't see that there's wood, so they go, okay, well, there's no wood here, so we're gonna go back down. They're going to keep doing that until they find the wood. That's something that I see all the time, where I'll see termite tubes, they'll come up and then nothing will happen, and then a few feet down, see more termite tubes, and then eventually they find them. And when they do find it, they start really tunneling up to find as many areas as they possibly can. A few mistakes that I see on the field: you want to make sure that you don't have firewood stacked along the house or anywhere close to the house. In the environment, the termites will find like a dead, rotting log and be able to take over that, use it as a food source. Well, if you have firewood stacked next to your house, you're creating the exact environment that they need. And once they find a food source, they're going to increase their search efforts in that area. I've seen it so many times. You get firewood right next to a house, start eating the firewood, and then right on the other side inside the crawl space, they're tunneling up everywhere trying to find more food. Cardboard boxes, things like that, are also cellulose materials. Another thing you do not want to do is store boxes in your crawl space. And I see that happen a lot, especially with people that have taller crawl spaces. They want to like store their boxes with Christmas decorations or whatever it is in the crawl space. They actually prefer cardboard over wood. It's really soft for them. They can chew right through it. And if it's in the crawl space, it's been exposed to moisture in most situations. So don't store wood in the crawl space, and do not store cellulose materials in the crawl space. Another thing that is problematic, heated floor systems. You know, if you have a slab, it makes it comfortable for you to walk on, but it also, during the winter, when you have those running, it attracts the termites. The way that they're designed, there's not really a safe way to do that treatment because there's tubes of water running in the slab. And then beyond that, mulch beds. When you have a mulch bed that you're piling more mulch on every year, and it just gets higher and higher and higher, it is extremely common for you to have termites in those mulch beds. So much so that during the warmer seasons, any house that I'm servicing, I'm moving around the mulch a little bit to get to the moisture underneath to see if there's termites present. And it's been a way that I've caught a lot of termite issues before they become an issue. So with the mulch, you want to keep it as thin as possible. You don't want to stack it up on top of each other over and over again. And you also never want your mulch beds to be higher or extend up to your siding. Say you have a slab house and there's siding, and the siding is a few inches off the ground. You want that space. They don't like sunlight, so you want that space for both to be a deterrent because they don't like the light, and you also want that space to detect termites as they're tunneling up. But when you fill that space with landscaping, with mulch, it makes it very, very easy for them to access to it. And in that situation, when they're coming from the outside, you're not going to know until you have damage on the inside typically. Our primary tool is monitoring and baiting. And the reason why is we want to attack the problem before it gets to the house. If they're already on the house, if they're attacking the wood, that's not an ideal situation. We want to treat it before it gets to that point. So we put our monitors and baits outside of the house and check them regularly. Triannually, we'll check those stations, and we'll make sure that if there's termite activity that we can, do the appropriate treatment. And if there's, anything going on with that station, if we need to replace it, then, we'll do that. And in addition to that, we'll do yearly inspections just to make sure. So ideally, the situation would be we install the stations, we come back, and we check on them. Oh, there's termite activity here. They're getting into the bait, great. So, within a couple months, it's gonna cause colony collapse. Let's make sure that, there's not anything else going on with the house. Nothing's going on with the house, awesome. Next appointment we come back, all the termites are gone. Right, so we're skipping the part where we have to go inside and do a bunch of drilling in the crawl space and trenching and we're dealing with damage and things like that. And so it's more of a proactive approach versus a reactive. So the way the termite monitors work is there's wood and there's also cellulose materials inside those stations. And the cellulose materials are in these cartridges. And what that cellulose material does in the cartridge, when the termites are foraging for their food, they find it and they'll set up their pheromones and they'll start to feed on that, right? And the way that cartridge is designed to be able to easily tell if there's termites in it. So when we check that station and we see that there's a hit, there's termites in that station, we'll swap it out with an active bait. And so the active bait is that same type of cellulose materials. It's very, very conducive for termite activity. They love the materials that are inside that cartridge. So then they start feeding on the bait, and that bait has an insect growth regulator. Basically, the termites, as they're growing, they have to molt their skins to get to the next stage of life. Well, this prevents them from doing that. So at first, it starts killing the workers, right, which support the colony. They feed the soldiers, they feed the queen and the supplementary reproductives. By the workers dying, it also puts stress on the rest of the colony. They're feeding the soldiers, so they're getting the insect growth regulator. And essentially, whenever one part of the colony dies, the other part of the colony will start to molt to make up for that other part, and they can't molt either. So within a couple of months, it just causes complete colony collapse. And what's really awesome about using insect growth regulators is they have almost zero impact on the environment, and they're only going to affect termites. They're not going to affect anything else. In fact, in third world countries, they use insect growth regulators for their drinking water, to make sure the mosquitoes are not breeding in it and causing a problem. There isn't a more environmentally friendly approach to it than that, and it's highly successful. Once they find that bait and they start feeding on the bait, it's 100% going to work. It's going to control that colony. There are stations you can get on your own. The stations that I see that most people have, you buy them for like $50, and it has like this little spring that lets out like a little orange plastic thing, and it's supposed to detect when termites eat the material inside. What the issue is, those stations are so flimsy that anything can cause that spring to come up. So say for instance, the little paper material that's inside gets a little wet. It'll cause it to dissolve and it'll shoot up that indicator that you have termite activity. So highly unreliable. Our stations, the stations we use, you can buy them, but what ends up happening is they're so expensive that when you compare what it costs to service your house for a year with a professional termite company versus how much it can cost just on your own, those prices are very similar. So you get the benefit of having somebody that really knows what they're doing and that's going to monitor, and it's going to bait, and you get the warranty. So if there's ever any issue that we're going to take care of it, you get all those benefits at roughly the same price. So there really isn't any benefit to go your own route in terms of getting the same products that we're using without that knowledge of like where they could be coming from, what they even look like. Being able to tell the difference between a station that just has mud in it and it's just wet and it's degrading because of the water from a station that's being attacked by termites, that is something you have to learn from experience. You're not going to be able to just look at that and be like, oh, I know what this is. That's something that you see over and over again. You know exactly what's going on. And beyond that, even just placing the stations in the right place. As a homeowner, without the experience of a pest control technician, I mean, we go out and we service these stations. We know exactly the places to put them. We know the places that are going to be problematic, that are going to be high traffic areas for the termites. That being said, the combination of you're going to spend around the same amount of money for a pest control company to come out, you're going to get a superior service, and you're not going to have to do it yourself. All those things, make it worthwhile to have a professional company take care of your house. Every home in the state of North Carolina has to be treated for termites using either a liquid treatment, boracare treatment, or borate treatment, or some type of baited station. So it is law. The house cannot close without you having a termite treatment in place. They have to show proof of that. And beyond that, it's completely on the buyer or the homeowners to make sure that they maintain termite protection. Typically, the company that does the termite treatment, they'll offer like some kind of extended warranty where, it'll cover the house for 5 years. They have to do an annual renewal inspection. But then beyond that, it's completely on them. And what's crazy is the homeowner's insurance, they will not cover any termite damage at all. It's interesting because there is that law that you have to get your house treated when you buy it. And then beyond that, if you go to sell it, there's no law that says that it has to be treated, but almost every loan provider is going to request a wood destroying insect report at some point. They do not want to facilitate any kind of loan without knowing that there isn't termites there, for fear that there's damage, you're gonna walk away. We live in a state where it's really common for you to get termites. We have a saying in the pest control industry, it's not if you're gonna get termites, it's when you're gonna get it. And it's the state law that the house has to be treated, but yet after that, it's it's completely on the homeowners. So this is our advanced station. So we put these every 15 feet around the house, and they sit flush to the ground. And inside of here, we have two things. We have the advanced cartridge, just a cellulose material that the termites absolutely love. And we also have this these wooden inserts, and there's little cuts in them, and the reason why is because termites really like to get in between cracks and crevices. They're actually closely related to roaches. So if you've ever seen a roach, like they like to have their bottom side and their top side sandwiched in between something. Termites are the exact same way. So when we come out and we do the inspection, we're pulling this out and we're looking for any signs of the termite activity. And this station right here, actually, I pulled it about a week ago. This is what we're looking for. So you can see the kind of mud tube material that's in this station, this right here, and you can see the tunneling inside the station as well. And there were active termites in here, but it's been a week and I think they're probably dead. They need a high level of moisture to sustain, and that's just not gonna be in this cartridge after a week. You can also see their mud tube material here. Now, one of the things that is confusing, if you don't know what you're looking at, the stations also, they just get mud in them over time, especially if the station is placed in an area where it gets a lot of moisture from the rain. And so there could be mud caked in there, and it looks similar. But there are differences, and this is why it really helps to have somebody that has serviced these stations and knows what to look for. In this particular case, we found the termites here, we swapped it out with a bait. There is no activity on the house, so the problem is being taken care of.